The last box was heavier than it looked, or maybe the weight came from somewhere else entirely. Emily Hart stood in the middle of the empty apartment, surrounded by echoes. Not just sound echoes, but memories. The laughter in the kitchen when they couldn't agree on how to cook spaghetti. The silent dinners after fights. The way the sunlight used to hit the couch where James always sat, feet on the coffee table like it was his throne. She let out a breath and dropped the keys on the counter. It was final now. Divorced at 28. Not exactly what she imagined when she said I do at 22 in a chapel in Arizona with wildflowers in her hair and hope in her heart. People say marriage is hard work, but they never talk about the quiet erosion, the way love doesn't explode, but fades like the last song on a broken record. One skipped beat at a time. It wasn't infidelity. It wasn't abuse. It was silence. Resentment. Emotional starvation. The nights when they lay in the same bed but felt continents apart. James had once been her best friend. But toward the end, even good morning felt like a burden. They tried counseling. 2 therapists, 3 different books, and a marriage retreat that only made things worse. They just stopped trying. Emily moved in with her older sister, Callie, in a small townhouse in Asheville, North Carolina. It had creaky floors and smelled like cinnamon, and for the first time in a long while, she slept without waking up to someone else's breathing. Her days were full of spreadsheets and emails. She worked remotely for a design agency, and her nights were filled with cheap wine, reruns of Grey's Anatomy, and long journal entries with more questions than answers. One day, Callie tossed a pamphlet on her bed. Healing Through the Trail, Weekend Retreat for Divorced Young Adults. Emily scoffed. Is this a joke? No. It's a hike in the Blue Ridge Mountains. You talk, you cry, you eat vegan chili, you come back slightly less broken. She didn't expect to meet anyone interesting at the retreat. She came for the trees and the silence. But then came Jonah. 30, tattooed forearms, a voice like thunder in the distance, and a look in his eyes that said he'd loved and lost something he still carried. Divorced 2 years ago. Had a dog. Built furniture by hand. Didn't believe in soulmates anymore. They hiked beside each other, swapping stories like trading war scars. When she told him James left her with a part of herself she couldn't find again, Jonah said something she never forgot. Maybe you're not supposed to find her. Maybe you're meant to become someone new. Back home, Emily started painting again, something she hadn't done in years. She hung her own art on the walls. Started dating herself. Bought a plant and didn't kill it. Cried less. Smiled more. Jonah would send her playlists. Songs that weren't about love, but healing. One day, she drove 4 hours to visit him in Tennessee. They talked all night on his porch under string lights, sipping coffee with whiskey. When he kissed her, it wasn't a fairy tale, it was grounding. Like touching the earth again after floating too long. 2 years passed. Emily now ran her own art studio. She didn't remarry. Neither did Jonah. They traveled together, but had separate apartments. They didn't promise forever. They promised honesty. She still kept the pamphlet from the retreat. Not because it saved her, but because it reminded her that healing isn't always loud or poetic. Sometimes, it's a slow walk in the woods with someone who understands. And as she stood on a cliff at sunrise, Jonah beside her, hands barely touching, she whispered to herself, not a wish, but a truth. This is not the end of love. This is where it learns to breathe again.
Senna, bringing you amazing life stories. Stay tuned.